Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Jury Trial Mentor. My name is John. I'm your host. I've got my attorney brother on the line. He's an experienced criminal trial attorney of close to 30 years. And we're talking. Let me turn that off. Sorry for the feedback. And we'll bring Carl on. As you can tell, despite Carl having Starlink just added to his phone today, his feed doesn't look that good. So the audio is coming in though right now. So we'll get on with the show, but bear with us. I think he's got a cloudy overcast or something going on right now. But and also at the very end, we'll take some questions. But let's get right to it. Carl, welcome back to your show. Let's talk about Donna and Harvey not being interviewed. That took a lot of people by surprise. What's your take on that?
It looks like they never really were going to be witnesses for the prosecution, and then the defense had put them on theirs, and there was the attorney for Harvey and Donna actually said in an email, if you look at the motion that Law Bellevue put on there, that that actually had not even Charlie had not even talked. Excuse me, Charlie's attorney Daniel Rashbaum had not even talked to her about what they would testify about and whatnot. So it looked like really a lot of lack of preparation on the part of Rashbaum, and so it looks like he wasn't going to call them either. But then what happened is they're on both witness lists. So I think the prosecution said, well, we might as well interview both them under the limited immunity statute provisions. And so what happened is, and that got, as we saw in the courtroom, even Rashbaum all spun up because then he would have had three Adelsons that are former clients of his testifying in this trial. And that was really a really odd scenario. So I think that they just decided that it's better not to have use immunity coming against the other Adelsons, because if they do want to charge them, as it's been said, then it makes it a little more logistically difficult if you're going to do that. I've done that actually before in the military. I've had a commanding general order part of a conspiracy for rape. The first one went down and got convicted. He was the actual rapist. Two others helped him out, and then we ordered the convicted rapists to testify as to what the others two did to help out. And so what we had to do is, like, you have a firewall in your office, so you wouldn't have the same attorneys and any of the same support staff being involved in that at all. So you'd have to have a firewall where there'd be no ability to learn what happened in the testimony in the trial of these witnesses. So it just makes it a cleaner kill, I think, from the prosecution. Although I think it would have been great to see them squirm and be under pressure with that. So, I think the other thing that really is telling, though, that is cannot be underestimated, the fact that, while the thumbnail says that, will they be there in Tallahassee to testify, they're not going to be testifying like most people think of it. But what I can say is that it's really, really key to notice reporting the defendant. And so here Charlie is facing a murder trial, and there's not going to be any of his family members there. I mean, Wendy is not going to be there because she's listed as a witness, and normally you're not going to release her, so she could attend and watch the rest of the trial. And she's not going to want to do that anyway. I think she wants to hightail it out of there as fast as she can. And some of the chat before this thing said, somebody saying that Harvey, so they came away from Tallahassee. They're probably worried about being arrested if they go up there. What are they hiding? And if they're hiding something, then that means Charlie's hiding as well. So the couple on that are not going to talk about that, obviously. But just from my experience for the years, you got to be a jury as an attorney. You got to know when you some riveting information to get in front of them. And you really got to be able to pick up on also the things that you can talk about in your clothes that came out in people's demeanor and stuff like that. So while they're not there, it's actually going to be a losing proposition for this case, because it looks like his family has left him because they're all running for the hills because they don't want to be facing scrutiny like he is. So it's actually a good thing for justice, and the fact that he's not going to be able to um, have these other family members come in there and make up some stories and whatnot. And so for them to actually be pointing so much of the evidence against Donna and the wiretaps and all, and for her not to be there, it really helps build the prosecution's case that this was really a family hit job.
Let's talk about voir dire next week, Carl. Monday starts jury selection. What are your thoughts on how long that will take? I've heard commentators say it's going to be up to a week. I've heard, or just watching Georgia today, it seemed like she says it might wrap up pretty quickly. What are your thoughts?
Well, you have such a strong take charge judge and Judge Everett. He's not going to let any monkey business or long drawn out questions. A lot of judges are very tightly controlling voir dire because attorneys can get carried away and just start getting into the weeds of the case and trying to see if anybody's not agreeing to their theory of the facts and whatnot. So it can really get carried away in short order and be drug out for quite a few days. So no way do I really see this thing going on probably 2.5 days. It could probably get wrapped up in 2 days or less even. So I think they're going to have to move up their witness order and arguments planning instead of like Thursday afternoon, Friday. They probably might even start at Wednesday.
Now, it seems like they're starting with 50 potential jurors, and they'll whittle it down to, I believe the number is 12 with three alternates. Is that pretty standard, Carl, in trials like this?
Yeah, they start out with 50, but they're really only going to question about the first 25 to start out with to try to get the 12 plus 3. So the others are going to be in the room listening, but they're really only going to be focusing on really the ones that are most likely to be called, which is out of that first 24, 25. So yeah, that's very standard. And in case there are a lot of people that know about the case and have formed opinions, then you have to go into the next batch if some of those are dismissed. So that's the thing that really takes a lot longer is if a lot of people know about a case and a lot of people have opinions. But this one's so old and it's so stale in so many ways that most folks are not going to have really any opinion on it. So that's why I think also why they can really see the quicker jury. And the questions that Judge Everett posed that he read to counsel, that really cuts through the chase. Do you have an opinion? Do you have an inelastic attitude or opinion on the facts? Can you keep an open mind? Those are the kind of questions that are typical for judges to ask, and jurors can hopefully answer that truthfully because we do want to get a fair jury. We don't want to have folks that are not qualified because they have different biases or things against folks that are there in the defendant's chair. So there's a lot of good questions that Rashbaum could ask also of jurors to make sure that they're really well suited to sit as jurors and not be predisposed to any particular support for the prosecution. That's the one thing I'm always concerned about is most jurors when they're sitting there they're thinking, all right, the defendant's sitting there, he's obviously guilty of something. We just got to find out what it is and we'll probably convict him. So I think that's sort of their mindset. So what I try to do is make sure that they understand the importance in the constitutional provisions to make sure that we do have, beyond a reasonable doubt before we convict. So I think they'll get a good jury that'll do the right thing. We just can't have stuff get out of hand like we had in the Murdo case, where you had a clerk of court making inflammatory statements against the defense to jurors as they're in the deliberation room. On breaks and whatnot. So that was really disturbing to see. So as long as somebody doesn't, step out of line like that, I think we'll have a clean, quicker trial than what we expected. Keep in mind, Rashbaum had mentioned that there was going to be possibly a whole week of witnesses for him, and obviously his witness list is really um, a nothing list because there's nothing that other than a couple of folks or all the rest of them are states witnesses, investigators, and whatnot. So he's really not going to have much of a case at all to present from what I see.
So you touched a little bit on the new judge in the case, Carl, Judge Everett. You've already spoken your opinions a little bit on another show, but for those of our viewers that haven't heard your take on the new judge in the case, can you basically give us another rundown of your opinion of this judge based on what you've seen so far?
Well, there's judges like if some of you all recall Judge Ito on the O.J. Simpson case. I mean, that judge was like probably the textbook one of how you can let a courtroom get out of control in a hurry, and the defense attorneys were just running roughshod. They were able to do anything they wanted to try to bamboozle and trick a jury and stuff like that. So, in this particular case, when you got a judge that's so rock solid, knows the law, has a strong personality, has that leadership type of personality to him. It really makes the lawyers, or both the prosecution and the defense, really have their A game on. And the way he cited the ethical rules, if you recall, to Harvey and Donna's attorney down there in Florida over that Zoom meeting, it really was something that all lawyers would perk up, and go, wait a minute, this judge is going to call me out. And then you got all these YouTube channels following the case as well, live as well. So it's going to be, I think the whole thing's going to go a lot quicker than most people realize. It's a lot of the same witnesses what they had before for the other trials, but based on this being an Adelson now being charged, you're going to see, I think, more evidence about what the dynamics were of the Adelson. So I think that's going to be the thing that's going to take a little bit longer to set the scene for that. But think it's going to be well worthwhile for the prosecutors to focus on that.
Yeah, I agree. He's very impressive. He holds command of the courtroom. He's to I think somebody who's weak, pretty intimidating. No nonsense. I totally agree with you. I think he's going to be great for this case. Let me go back real quick to a comment from Law Bill V. She said, "This judge is what you want on both sides: determined, fair, and no nonsense." I think we
Right.
both agree
Yeah,
with
like I
that.
say, you can have prosecutors, out of line and stuff like that. He's not and also you don't want jurors to sit there and listen to lawyers just dragging stuff out and whatever. So having a judge like that, it's just gonna be all about justice and doing the right things. I'm happy to see that.
So, Carl, let's switch gears real quick. Credit to the society page for this wiretap between Jim Lewis, who was Sigfredo Garcia's uh, first attorney. I think I got that right. And Katie Magbanua. I think you listened to that. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mentioned that on either Survivor Court TV the other day. I thought it was just really disturbing on a number of levels, because what you basically had, I encourage everyone to go look at that. It was on Fancy Fictions probably about a week ago. But it basically has the attorney at that time was Jim Lewis for Sigfredo Garcia, and he's talking to Katie. So he's in order to talk to Katie like that, and he's basically giving her advice. So now he's also referred to potential defendants in a murder case. And he also was talking to the attorney for Charlie. He doesn't know his name, but you can obviously gather who he was talking about. And he was basically saying that, all the lips are sealed, or words to that effect, that nobody's talking, just stay put, do anything. And so they had this firewall among all the conspirators, that they're not going to talk. And, we're not going to listen to the law enforcement guys saying that we know that Katie's involved, and we're not going to cooperate. So really, Katie was in the best position at that time if she'd have had an attorney that wasn't tied to Sigfredo to say, "Hey, you know what, Katie, if you know something, and you can point the finger at somebody else, even though you weren't let's just say the trigger person, but you're involved in this." They obviously need to go after the bigger fish, and so she could have gotten a sweetheart deal, which she did with the other counsel she subsequently received to represent her. And so I just thought that that was really something that I don't like to see defense attorneys do. I think defense attorneys can actually do a lot of good for justice, because prosecutors maybe can't get everybody convicted that they want to as part of conspiracy. But if you have lawyers that are out there saying, they're having the tough talks to their clients, saying, "Do you realize what you're facing if you go down on this? And if you don't, now, you may never see the light of day." So I think it's just sad when we don't have attorneys that do the thing that I think is helpful for society, which is actually beneficial to the client and to justice overall. So I've said that before. If they would have gotten Katie in there and gotten her deal, she'd have been out of jail in no time. Wouldn't have had to go to prison. Would have been with her kids. Sometimes when you sit there and say, you're in the defiance mode and say, I dare the state to, take me on and prosecute me. A lot of times that's going to be your worst outcome because, as I've said, Katie is in the worst case scenario I've ever seen a defendant being able to walk out of jail and then basically stuff gets gummed up because you think you can um, thumb your nose at the law and lie your way through court and now look where it got you. So it's just a really crying shame that that our justice system, it's taken this long, and she did not cooperate, and people didn't hold their feet to the fire. I also look at it sort of like, like attorneys should be more confrontational with their client when they're making a wrong and stupid decision. It's almost like handlers of celebrities. When you think of a lot of these celebrities, you hear about they drown in the tub, they OD'd on drugs, or they take Proferol, like Michael Jackson and stuff like that. Their handlers, the people that are supposed to be their best supporters, are actually the ones that really let them down. And they saw them basically wilting away and crashing and burning with their life, and nobody really speaks up. So I think as attorneys, we need to be aggressive like that and challenge our clients in what they're saying at the right time and making sure that we get them the best deal for justice as well.
So, news I heard today was that Attorney Dan Rashbaum, is adding a co-counsel. It seems to me like a jury trial consultant. What do you call those, Carl? And what's your opinion on that? If he indeed is hiring a professional to come in there for voir dire next week.
Yes. Well, I think from what I've seen, most attorneys dread voir dire. I think that prosecutors just want to get it over with because they realize that most folks on the jury tend to believe that that it's wrong, and you just got to give them the right information to convict. And I do think defense counsel have the tougher job. You say you're innocent until proven guilty by the court, and but you really got to make the jury think about what the consequences are if you wrongly convict someone, and that's even worse than convicting a guilty person is convict a wrong an innocent person that was falsely accused. So I've had a lot of false accused in my career, and so it really is important to have zealous, competent defense counsel that can make sure that the innocent get protected and not just the guilty go down. So I think that having a jury consultant is probably something that on a big case, it's probably a smart thing to do. This person made an appearance. I know Law Bellevue has checked it. I also checked it tonight to see if sometimes they have delayed postings at the clerk's office. So they did notice that there's notice of appearance of an attorney, but we didn't see the name. So it's somebody. It could be anybody across the United States. There's people that specialize in that. It's probably some psychologist that also has a law degree. And so, in any event, the that just helps them try to pick the right jurors and maybe think of how to get rid of ones that they don't want, and how to question them and whatnot. And also, they help with the ultimate selection of who they want as a juror. So, because a lot of defense attorneys don't really like dealing with that, but it is very important. It's very key to the case. I think voir dire is probably one of the key things that most important parts of the trial that I think a lot of attorneys don't even consider it that important at all. But if you get the right questions out, that also gives you a chance to speak to the jury firsthand and ask them questions. You never get to ask a question of a juror again. So if you don't come across well to a jury, you're not very good talking with jurors, and you don't have a good rapport with them, then you're probably not well suited to do that, and you probably do want to bring in an expert consultant like that. But most of your clients in the criminal arena aren't going to be having that kind of money, and the state isn't going to pay for that usually. So, in any event, Charlie's able to afford it, or whether his parents are paying for that, who knows? But I think in this particular case, I mean, there's not the case is so strong against Charlie. I don't think it really matters who they pick. So, um, it's going to result in the same verdict of guilty.
Quick technical note. Sorry about the glitchy audio and video, everyone. Carl today has a new Starlink, which is really state of the art satellite internet connection, but for some reason it's giving us some fits. But fortunately, the audio is coming through well enough, I think. So before we jump into your questions, and I've highlighted a few, um, a quick programming note: Carl was on Court TV tonight, and their YouTube feed should be up now. So if you go to Court TV, the show is called Closing Arguments. For a first time, Carl was actually interviewed alongside Joel and Carmela from Surviving the Survivor. So I'm gonna post that link below after this programming is stopped. But so right now we're gonna jump into some comments. First of all, Carl, let's go to Katie Brown's question, which is when, and you've talked about this before, but for those who haven't seen it, when do you anticipate Donna's arrest?
Well, I think the fact if they don't get arrested before the opening statements, then I think they're probably going to wait till after they get a conviction. So, there was that thing that was highlighted today by Law Bellevue about where they had mentioned that they want to basically not gum up the firewall that we talked about if you have a immunized testimony. So the fact that they mentioned potential future prosecutions of the Adelsons. So they're talking about both Harvey and Donna with that. So I thought that was a good sign, but it could also be the fact that they don't ever intend to, unless there's some other type of a strong evidence that comes forward. But I do think that I do hope and I believe that they will actually arrest Donna. If not before the trial, then right after the trial, probably within a few weeks. So I think Harvey also is could be a target on that list, but I would say they probably are going to go with arresting Donna first, and then Wendy in that order, and then see if somebody flips on the other party.
Okay, let's go to a few more here. Sonny says, I wish all of the jailed conspirators would testify. I think we'll agree on that. High all trial is
Yeah,
almost
let me say
here.
something about that.
Yeah.
Let me say something about that. As far as I know, Sigfredo, we don't know that he's given. It doesn't look like he's given a proffer at all. So they maybe just put him on the list and have him transported there to be available in case in the last minute he's agreeing to flip on on and becomes state's evidence. So it remains to be seen. His case is up on appeal, and he was defiant and wouldn't cooperate beforehand. So why he's not able to change his opinion after being in jail, and he's going to rot there the rest of his life. So it just doesn't make any sense. It's just really really a bizarre factor in this case.
Carla's comment here, and I agree with Carla 100%. I don't think either Donna or Harvey will attend the trial. They're too paranoid looking over their shoulders. So being that close to the prosecution is not even a consideration for them.
Yep, I agree.
One
Well
more
said.
comment by Law Bellevue, Carl. Um, at the Society page, she says, I'm fascinated by them. Sig's lawyer rightfully brings up conflicts. I've been surprised, like Carl, on the conflicts considerations, I guess you would say, on this one.
Right. There's the conflicts issue for attorneys is really something that even a lot of attorneys don't understand. And I wasn't really totally up to speed on some of it as well until maybe like I don't know, was that about 15 years ago when something came up in the Pentagon. But in any event, it's your duty of representation and zealous representation for your clients extends for life. So if I was representing somebody and they came in and let's say they were a suspect of a crime and they were never charged, but they were my client, I have to even if they never get arrested or whatever, I can never talk adversely about that client to anyone at any time. And so that's a duty that is something that is that I think a lot of folks think that they can just go ahead and talk. Well, it's an old client, and I can talk about stuff that they said and whatnot. But it's really something that sticks with you. That's why I had brought that up, and Tim supported that as well. And La Bellevue, I think she's in the Tallahassee area, from what I gather. But so I think Florida ethics is the same as any other state for the most part. They're virtually identical. So Why these attorneys have all these conflicts in Florida, I've never seen anything like that. I, I I'm just shocked and surprised, and so apparently that's allowed down there, and or else they just don't know about it. But it's just not a good practice because you may have to get bounced off the case. Maybe that's why Jim Lewis got off the case because he realized he's talking to two co-conspirators on a murder, and he thought, you know what, I don't want to get caught between these and whatnot. So I don't know how long the attorney was um, for Sigfredo before that Sam guy got him. But in any event, it was very very odd and disturbing.
WW asks Carl, do you think Katie Magbanua not having attorneys present during the proffers could signal that part of her testimony could revolve around the conduct of her previous lawyers, i.e., who paid?
Yeah, I've said that before, right? I think that one of the key things they could bring out is like who paid for her lawyers. She obviously knows. I think she should know, and I'm sure she was. If the Adelson paid for that, then they would have reminded her of how much she's got all their backing and all their money to defend her. And I'm just shocked at how somebody could waste away that many years awaiting trial, and then you get a mistrial, hung jury with only one juror not agreeing to vote for conviction. That was like her saving grace to try to get out of going to trial a second time. But instead of using it as a lesson learned for her attorneys, they just said, no, we're going to double down and we're going to go to trial a second time. And the same nonsense, but they didn't have a poor juror on there the second time, and obviously she got convicted so fast. And so I just think it's really I think it's really something that I would definitely, if I was a prosecutor, be going after. And I don't know if she didn't have any attorneys. I know Tim Jensen said that on Surviving Survivor, but I don't I'm not going to take that as like the absolute truth that she didn't have attorneys in there. So I think I my understanding was that she didn't have Tara Kwas in there, but she did have Chris Lacoste. And Chris Lacoste, I remember thinking that he had driven all the way up from Miami to go and be a part of the proffer. So why Tim was saying that, I don't think that's accurate.
Sonny Tanner says, I wish all the jailed conspirators would testify. And one more thing, Society Page
Yeah.
says, and I didn't know this, La Belle V is in the Miami area. Okay, that's good to know.
Oh, Miami.
Um,
Okay.
Tampa Lisa says, how do they explain Uncle Charlie's incarceration to the boys? They, meaning the boys, must have it figured out.
Yeah, I just think a lot of times when kids are in that scenario, I think they have what do you call it?
Stockholm
Um
syndrome.
no, well that's part of it too, but cognitive dissonance,
Hmm.
or in their mind they cannot open that door. It's just too painful to think of. So everything to reinforce in their mind that reality is not reality, and they basically have to create their own reality, which is that Charlie's away for something else, has nothing to do with murdering our dad. So but then again, we also know kids can be cruel. Maybe kids that are following this maybe say something to them. So it's got to be a very very hard thing for them to deal with. But I think eventually over the years they will want to know the truth, and especially if Charlie's convicted. I think that's really going to be something that they won't be able to keep a lid on. And so, but I think that they're just hunkering down. They're in the bunker mentality right now. They're just telling the boys don't talk about it. If anything comes up about Charlie, they're probably telling them, we can't talk about Charlie. He's away. He's got some problems, and that's probably all they're telling them. And so it's eventually going to leak out, and it's just going to be very sad for the boys.
Our KCL has a comment. I thought Chris DeCoste was a good attorney. He asked Wendy a lot of questions that kept her squirming in her seat.
Yeah, I I think he had good tone. I think he did a lot of body language stuff to be tough on her, but there's a whole truckload of questions that I would have asked that he never asked. And if you noticed that Tara Kwas objected to a lot of the questions that came out that had to do with Donna and Charlie. And did you know that Tara Kwas objected to that nasty email that Donna sent to Wendy? So the one about the Hitler Youth and converting them to Catholicism and all that kind of stuff. Did you know that Tara Kwas objected to that and went up to the judge and they had a sidebar discussion and the judge only admitted it for I think it was effect on listener. It wasn't the actual truth of the matter that's what Donna wanted him to have happen. So why would she be protecting the Adelsons that way? It made no sense to me. And so I didn't see Chris DeCoste do that. And but he left so many questions unanswered. And when Wendy was asked a question and she denied it, he didn't keep on digging and digging and digging. Because if you know somebody's lying, you keep letting them off, and basically they know they're looking so bad. And so she did deflection, and he never pinned down any of those lies. So overall, I think he did enough to show that she's a liar and she's involved. But she would have been on there many, many more hours if it was doing the quick.
Well, this is the end of our live stream. Thanks everyone for joining. Sorry we weren't able to get to everybody's questions. Next week, I'm going to be in Tallahassee for Voir dire. But as far as live streaming is concerned, we're going to both be doing it from home. And right now, we plan on streaming at approximately 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern time every night and giving Carl's opinions on what he saw. So thank you so much for joining us today and look forward to communicating with you on this Justice for Dan trial next week. Thanks, everyone. See you on the next one.